My name is Rabbi Joseph Beda from Congregation B'nai Yitzchak. This week's parasha has one of the most tragic stories in the entire Torah, the killing of Hevel by his older brother Cain. And since it comes in the beginning of the Torah, at the outset of humanity, one has to wonder, is the Torah telling us that this is what we are doomed to have happen? Is it necessarily going to be coded into our nature that brother will try and kill brother? Or is there some other way? Can we learn from the story in order to not repeat it? One of the most interesting pisukim in the entire story is after Cain has offered up something and Hevel has offered up something, and Hashem accepts Cain and not Hevel, and then Hashem reassures Cain, but it's going to be okay. Before Cain goes and kills Hevel, the pasuk says, "Vayomer Cain el Hevel achiv," and Cain said to Hevel, his brother. What's very interesting and has bothered just about every reader who's ever read it is it doesn't say what he said. All it says is that he said. What did he say? One of the most interesting ways of explaining this that I've come across is that actually the Torah is telling us that he didn't say anything. By not saying what he said, the Torah is expressing the fact that the discussion, the conversation, the talk between the two of the brothers had completely broken down. And what the Torah is therefore teaching us is that as long as conversation is going on, brothers are not doomed to kill one another. But when the conversation breaks down, the next step is war, and war leads to death. It's a tragic story when we go that way, but it doesn't have to be that way if we keep the lines of communication and conversation open. And it seems like an easy thing to do, but one need not look far to see that it's not so easy, and sometimes it's not so common. In the last 2 weeks, we had a presidential debate. One of these two men is going to lead the United States of America. And what was striking to most people about this debate is that it wasn't a debate at all. The two gentlemen could not speak to one another. They were each trying to talk over one another and insult one another. Unless we think that this is only true about the president, look at the leader of New York State government in New York City. While a major pandemic is going on, huge decisions that impact the lives of millions, you would think that the mayor and governor are working together. And in fact, major newspapers are reporting that over the last 30 days, as huge decisions are being made, the mayor and governor, who can't stand one another, only spoke once in a month. This is something that I wish was only true about politicians. Unfortunately, we know that sometimes it leaks into our own community, between rabbis, between family members, between friends, between business partners, and we can't let this happen. We can't allow ourselves to ever sink into a situation where we can't talk to the people that we really need to have relationships with, the people that we need to love, the people that we have to be in a shared covenant with. If we need to, I think we can look for a great example to the disputes between Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. They disagreed vehemently, and it talks about in the Gemara that they argued for years. But ultimately, a voice came down from Shamayim and said to them, Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim Chaim, you're both the words of the living God, but listen to Bet Hillel. And why do we listen to Bet Hillel? Not because they were always right, but rather because of the way they did things. And the Torah tells us 3 things about what Bet Hillel did, which we should apply to make sure that we always keep conversation open. Number 1 was that they were pleasant and that they accepted insult. That was number 1, was that they were nice, they were easy. And if someone said something not nice about them, they didn't take it to heart, they let it go. Number 2, they always quoted the other side. Instead of worrying about what they had to say, what they wanted to project, and what their way was going to be, even though they felt strongly about their way, they made sure to see the other side. And that was very, very important. But not only did they do that, the third thing that the Gemara tells us is that they showed the other side first. They showed that they were respecting the other side, not only thinking about what they said, but showing outward respect to the other side. If we can keep these 3 things in mind, we'll always be able to keep conversation open. Be nice. Be able to accept the insult. Don't take yourself too seriously. Hear out the other side, and not only hear out the other side, but let the other side know that you're listening to them by placing their needs first. If we can do this, we can avoid the tragedy that the Torah tells us about, because that's what the Torah is telling us. Listen learn from the past. Don't make those mistakes. Rather, follow the way of Bet Hillel. And if we do that, Be'ezrat Hashem, we will have Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.